Life is full of hardships, and even the most enlightened beings are not exempt from suffering. The Buddha, revered as an enlightened master, was not born into a life of ease and privilege without tribulations. Instead, he encountered numerous challenges, betrayals, and dangers, each of which tested his wisdom, patience, and compassion. Often, we perceive spiritual figures as detached from human struggles, yet Buddha's journey serves as a testament to the very real hardships that even the most enlightened souls must face. These 8 calamities that befell the Buddha are not merely historical anecdotes, they hold invaluable lessons applicable to our modern lives. Imagine experiencing ceaseless slander, betrayal by loved ones, assassination attempts, and wrongful accusations. These were only some of the tribulations the Buddha faced. However, instead of responding with anger or vengeance, he embodied the virtues of patience, forgiveness, and understanding, using each ordeal as an opportunity to teach and transform the world around him. This article explores these 8 trials in depth, not just to recount the Buddha's suffering but to uncover the wisdom he imparted through them. By studying these events, we gain insights into how to handle our own difficulties with grace and wisdom. If even the Buddha had to endure such hardships, what lessons can we take from his experiences to navigate our own struggles? As we delve into each calamity, consider how Buddha's reactions contrast with the way most people today respond to adversity. Are we quick to anger? Do we retaliate when wronged? Or can we cultivate the same resilience and inner peace that he exemplified? Let us embark on this journey to understand the trials of the Buddha and the profound teachings that arose from them. Calamity 1, the Wrath of Akshina. Among the many trials faced by the Buddha, one of the most notable was his encounter with a Brahmin named Akshina. His name ironically meant one without anger, yet he was infamous for his irascible nature and quick temper. When he learned that Buddha was known for his imperturbable calmness, he became determined to challenge and provoke the Enlightened One. One day, Akshina approached Buddha while he was teaching and unleashed a relentless barrage of insults. He called him names, hurled crude remarks, and did everything he could to elicit a reaction. The crowd fell silent, observing the spectacle with curiosity, expecting Buddha to retaliate or at least rebuke the Brahmin. But Buddha did not react. Instead, he patiently listened, his expression remaining serene and unmoved. When Akshina finally exhausted himself, Buddha calmly asked, "Tell me, Brahmin, if someone brings you a gift and you refuse to accept it, to whom does the gift belong?" Confused, Akshina replied, "It remains with the giver, of course." Buddha then smiled and said, "Likewise, I refuse to accept your insults. They remain with you." At that moment, the crowd realized the depth of Buddha's wisdom. The Brahmin, taken aback, was left speechless. He had expected retaliation, but instead, he received a lesson in self-control and detachment. This encounter is not just a story of patience, it serves as a profound lesson in emotional intelligence and self-mastery. How often do we allow the words of others to disturb our inner peace? When we react impulsively to negativity, we surrender control over our emotions. Buddha's response teaches us that we always have the power to decide what affects us. Consider a modern-day scenario. Imagine someone posts a harsh comment on social media, trying to provoke an argument. The natural tendency might be to respond with equal aggression. But what if we took Buddha's approach? If we refuse to accept the negativity, it remains with the one who sent it. In a world rife with anger and conflict, choosing peace is an act of great strength. We are not obligated to accept negativity from others. Choosing not to react is a powerful tool in self-mastery. Instead of being controlled by others' words, we can cultivate inner peace and resilience. Akshina, a Brahmin whose name ironically meant one without anger, was known for his fiery temper. When he heard that Buddha remained calm no matter what, he set out to test him. He hurled insults, used the most vile language, and did everything to provoke a reaction. Buddha responded with wisdom. If someone brings you a gift and you refuse to accept it, who does it belong to? Akashina answered, to the one who gave it. Then, said Buddha, I refuse your insults, so they remain yours. We are not obligated to accept negativity from others. Choosing not to react is a powerful tool in self-mastery. Calamity 2, the persistent insults of another Brahmin. During his travels, the Buddha often encountered individuals who sought to challenge or undermine his teachings. One such instance involved a Brahmin who followed him persistently, hurling insults and speaking ill of him at every opportunity. This Brahmin was determined to provoke a reaction from the Buddha, hoping to see a sign of frustration or anger from the Enlightened One. For hours, the man walked behind Buddha, continuing his verbal assault. The onlookers were astounded at Buddha's unwavering composure. Finally, one of his disciples, unable to bear the disrespect any longer, turned to Buddha and asked, "Why do you not respond to him, Master? Should we not stop him from such dishonor?" Buddha turned to his disciple and replied calmly, "If someone comes to your house bearing a gift, but you refuse to accept it, to whom does the gift belong?" The disciple answered, "To the one who brought it." Buddha then continued, "Likewise, I do not accept his anger, so it remains with him. Why should I let it burden me?" Upon hearing these words, the Brahmin, exhausted from his futile efforts, fell silent. He realized that no matter how much anger he directed toward Buddha, it had no effect because Buddha refused to absorb it. Instead, he maintained his serenity and control over his emotions, rendering the Brahmin's aggression meaningless. This story highlights an essential lesson in emotional resilience. Buddha's response teaches that negativity and hostility only take hold if we allow them to. When someone directs anger toward us, we have the choice to either engage in conflict or maintain our inner peace. It is not the insult that wounds us, but our reaction to it. Imagine being confronted with an unfair critique at work or an aggressive comment online. The natural impulse is to react defensively, but what if, instead, we chose to remain unaffected, understanding that the negativity belongs to the sender? By adopting Buddha's mindset, we free ourselves from unnecessary distress and gain mastery over our emotional responses. We cannot control how others behave, but we can control how we react. External circumstances do not have to dictate our internal peace. Choosing non-reaction is not a sign of weakness, it is a demonstration of profound strength and wisdom. On another journey, Buddha encountered a different Brahmin who followed him around, yelling insults. Despite being verbally assaulted for hours, Buddha remained composed. A disciple asked why he did not respond. Buddha explained, "If someone brings food to a house and no one accepts it, the food remains with the giver. Similarly, when people offer us anger, we do not have to consume it. External circumstances do not have to dictate our internal peace." Calamity 3, the vengeful princess of Kosambi. During his time teaching and spreading the Dharma, the Buddha often encountered individuals whose ego and pride led them to resent his wisdom. One such individual was a beautiful princess of Kosambi. She had grown up admired by all, her beauty an unquestionable asset in the royal court. However, one fateful day, she overheard a comment from Buddha that deeply wounded her pride. Buddha had remarked that physical beauty was fleeting, an impermanent state that held no true value. To those who understood his teachings, this was a simple truth: everything in life is impermanent. However, the princess took this as a personal slight, feeling humiliated and disrespected. She was not used to being dismissed in such a way, and her wounded pride quickly turned into a burning desire for revenge. Determined to make Buddha suffer, she devised a plan. She hired a group of ruffians from the city, instructing them to follow Buddha wherever he went and publicly harass him with insults, jeers, and accusations. She believed that, at the very least, she could tarnish his reputation, and at best, she could make him lose his composure, proving that he was no different from any other man. Day after day, the group followed Buddha and his disciples as they walked through Kosambi. They shouted insults, ridiculed his teachings, and mocked him in front of the crowds. Many onlookers were disturbed by this spectacle, confused as to why the Buddha remained silent. His disciple Ananda, deeply troubled by the unrelenting attacks, could hold his frustration no longer. "Master, let us leave this place," Ananda implored. "These people are wicked and will not stop harassing us. We should go elsewhere, where we will be received with respect." Buddha turned to Ananda and asked gently, "If a healer only treats those who are already well, what kind of healer is he?" "A true healer treats those who are sick, even if they resist medicine. Likewise, I do not turn away from those who are spiritually ill. These people are lost, and they need my teachings more than anyone." Ananda was humbled by this response, realizing that Buddha's mission was to guide even those who opposed him. Buddha continued walking, never once reacting to the insults or showing any sign of distress. The ruffians, seeing that their efforts had no effect, grew tired. Slowly, they dropped away, one by one, until none remained. News of this reached the princess, and she was struck with awe. How could a man withstand so much hatred and still respond with peace? Her rage turned to curiosity, and curiosity to humility. Eventually, she sought an audience with Buddha herself, and after listening to his teachings, she repented and became a devoted follower. This story illustrates the power of patience, compassion, and unwavering purpose. Buddha understood that those who attack others often do so out of ignorance or inner turmoil. By responding with patience rather than retaliation, he demonstrated the true strength of wisdom. Many of us face situations where people attack us verbally, whether in our personal relationships, workplaces, or online. The natural response is to defend ourselves or fight back. But what if we responded with the same calm and wisdom as Buddha? By refusing to be affected by insults, we rob negativity of its power over us. People who hurt us often act out of ignorance or unresolved suffering. Responding with compassion instead of retaliation allows us to rise above their negativity and transform hostility into understanding. A beautiful princess of Kosambi felt insulted when Buddha remarked that physical beauty was fleeting. Enraged, she plotted revenge. She hired ruffians to harass him in public. His disciple Ananda pleaded for them to leave, but Buddha refused, stating, "A healer does not abandon the sick. These people are spiritually unwell and need guidance." After listening to Buddha's teachings, the mob had a change of heart. People who hurt us often act out of ignorance. Compassion, not avoidance, is the best response. Calamity 4, the false accusation of Sinka. Among the many trials that tested Buddha's wisdom and composure, the false accusation by Sinka remains one of the most devious. Sinka was a woman known for her cunning and deceitful nature, and she was bribed by those who sought to undermine Buddha's teachings and reputation. Their goal was to destroy his credibility and turn people against him. One day, as Buddha was giving a sermon before a large crowd of followers, Sinka appeared before him. She had tied wooden slats beneath her robes to make it appear as though she was pregnant. In front of everyone, she pointed to her stomach and accused Buddha of seducing her and leaving her to bear his child alone. Her voice rang with conviction as she publicly shamed him, hoping to stir doubt and disbelief among his followers. The crowd murmured, some looking at Buddha with suspicion, while others gasped at the audacity of such an accusation. Yet, amid the rising tension, Buddha remained unshaken. He did not rush to defend himself, nor did he express anger or frustration. Instead, he calmly gazed at Sinka and said, "Sister, only you and I know the truth." His voice was steady, free of any malice or resentment. His simple words cut through the deception like a blade of truth. Suddenly, as if by the hand of fate, the ropes holding the wooden slats loosened, and they fell to the ground, revealing her lie. The crowd gasped in shock. Sinka, realizing her deceit had been exposed, attempted to flee, but the people were already aware of her treachery. While many called for her punishment, Buddha held no desire for revenge. Instead, he used the moment to teach a valuable lesson about truth and deception. Falsehood may prevail for a moment, but it cannot stand against the light of truth. Just as the sun rises and dispels the darkness, truth will always reveal itself in time. This incident demonstrates the power of truth and integrity. The Buddha's refusal to react emotionally or retaliate against Sinka's deceit emphasizes the importance of maintaining inner peace, even when facing false accusations. His response teaches us that truth needs no defense, it will inevitably reveal itself. In today's world, false accusations and slander can spread quickly, whether in the workplace, among friends, or even on social media. When faced with unjust criticism or lies, the natural impulse is to react defensively or counterattack. However, Buddha's example teaches us that silence, patience, and unwavering integrity are often the best responses. Rather than becoming consumed by anger or seeking revenge, we can remain composed and trust that, in time, the truth will come to light. Lies will always collapse under the weight of truth. Responding to false accusations with patience and wisdom preserves our dignity and inner peace. A deceitful woman named Sinka was paid to frame Buddha. She tied wooden slats under her clothes, pretending to be pregnant. In front of a large crowd, she accused Buddha of seducing her and refusing to acknowledge the unborn child. Buddha responded calmly, "Only you and I know the truth." The wooden slats fell, exposing her lies. Instead of punishing her, Buddha taught her the path to enlightenment. Lies will always collapse under the weight of truth. Calamity 5, the Brahmin who framed Buddha for murder. Among those who opposed the Buddha, there was a Brahmin who harbored deep resentment toward him. This Brahmin had once been an influential teacher, commanding great respect and followers. However, as more and more of his disciples left to follow the Buddha, his jealousy grew into hatred. Determined to bring down the Buddha and regain his lost influence, he devised a sinister plan. The Brahmin had a daughter, a young woman of remarkable beauty and intelligence. He loved her dearly but saw her as a tool to achieve his revenge. One night, in a twisted act of cruelty, he took her life, burying her body within the grounds of Buddha's monastery. The next morning, he approached the ruling authorities, trembling with feigned despair. "My daughter is missing," he cried before the king's council. "She was last seen near the monastery of Gautama the Buddha. I fear that he and his monks have committed a terrible crime against her." The claim sent shockwaves throughout the city. How could a revered teacher like the Buddha be capable of such an atrocious act? The people were divided, some refused to believe it, while others were quick to cast judgment. As the king's men arrived at the monastery to investigate, the Brahmin dramatically led them to the very spot where he had buried his daughter's body. The discovery was horrifying. There, in a shallow grave, lay the lifeless form of his daughter. The murmurs of the crowd swelled into accusations. "Surely, this is proof of the Buddha's guilt," some cried. "If he were truly enlightened, How could such a crime occur under his watch? Despite the mounting pressure, the Buddha remained silent. He did not attempt to defend himself, nor did he point fingers at others. Instead, he stood calmly, as serene as ever, waiting for the truth to reveal itself. The king, recognizing the gravity of the situation, ordered a full investigation. Through careful examination, inconsistencies in the Brahmin's account began to emerge. Witnesses reported that the young woman had been missing long before she was supposedly seen near the monastery. Her injuries suggested that she had been harmed elsewhere before being placed on the sacred grounds. At last, the truth unraveled. A close confidant of the Brahmin, overwhelmed by guilt, stepped forward and confessed everything. The Brahmin himself had orchestrated the entire scheme, sacrificing his own daughter to frame the Buddha. The king, outraged at such an abhorrent act, ordered the Brahmin to face the consequences of his crime. The people, who had been so quick to judge, now fell silent with shame. They had doubted the Buddha based on mere accusations, failing to see that truth, like the sun, can never remain hidden for long. When asked why he had remained silent during the ordeal, the Buddha simply replied, "Falsehood may gain momentum, but it can never outrun the truth. The wise need not argue, time will bring clarity." This story serves as a lesson on patience, integrity, and the unwavering nature of truth. The Buddha's refusal to react impulsively demonstrates his deep trust in the natural course of justice. He knew that no matter how severe the accusation, deception would eventually crumble under its own weight. In today's world, false accusations can spread like wildfire, whether through gossip, social media, or manipulative tactics. Many innocent individuals have been wrongly accused, their reputations tarnished before they even have a chance to defend themselves. This story reminds us that patience, rather than retaliation, is often the best response. If we maintain our integrity, the truth will eventually emerge. The truth always surfaces, even when the odds seem stacked against us. Facing false accusations with patience and dignity preserves both our inner peace and our honor. A jealous Brahmin saw his followers leaving to join Buddha, so he devised a sinister plan. He killed his own daughter and buried her inside Buddha's monastery, then accused Buddha of the crime. With no evidence to prove his innocence, Buddha remained silent. However, the truth was later revealed, and the Brahmin was exposed. The truth always surfaces, even when the odds seem stacked against us. Calamity 6, Devdutta's jealousy and attempted murder. Among those who opposed the Buddha, none was more dangerous than his own cousin, Devdutta. A fellow monk, Devdutta harbored deep jealousy towards the Buddha's wisdom, influence, and the love his followers held for him. Over time, this envy turned into an intense desire for power. Devdutta wished to take over leadership of the monastic order and sought to remove Buddha by any means necessary. At first, Devdutta attempted to persuade the Buddha to step down, claiming that he could lead the order better. However, Buddha, knowing Devdutta's flawed intentions, refused. Enraged, Devdutta began plotting more extreme measures to eliminate him. Devdutta made several attempts on Buddha's life, each one more treacherous than the last. Releasing a drunk elephant, Devdutta arranged for a fierce, intoxicated elephant to be let loose in the streets while Buddha was passing by. The elephant, maddened by alcohol, charged toward him. While the crowd panicked, Buddha remained still, radiating pure loving kindness toward the beast. The elephant, sensing this aura of peace, stopped in its tracks and knelt before him, subdued by his presence. Rolling a boulder from a cliff, Devdutta next tried to assassinate Buddha by pushing a massive boulder down a mountain path where he was walking. Though the rock shattered into smaller pieces before reaching him, one sharp fragment injured Buddha's foot. Despite this, he remained composed and continued on his path without fear or anger. Sowing discord among the monks, failing in his direct attempts, Devdatta resorted to deceit, spreading lies to create division within the monastic community. He convinced a group of monks that Buddha was too lenient in his teachings and that he, Devdatta, would enforce stricter discipline. For a short time, he gained followers, but soon his deceit became clear, and the monks returned to the Buddha. Devdatta's attempts to overthrow and destroy Buddha ultimately led to his own downfall. His manipulations were exposed, his conspiracies failed, and his health deteriorated. In the end, he sought to reconcile with Buddha, but karma had taken its course. Devdatta, weakened and near death, attempted to walk toward Buddha but collapsed before reaching him, never getting the forgiveness he sought. Devdatta's story serves as a cautionary tale about the destructive nature of jealousy and ambition. His downfall was not caused by Buddha but by his own unchecked desires. Rather than seeking enlightenment, he craved power and recognition, leading to his demise. In today's world, envy and ambition continue to drive conflicts, whether in workplaces, politics, or personal relationships. Many attempt to bring others down to elevate themselves, only to find that such actions lead to their own suffering. The Buddha's unwavering patience and compassion in the face of betrayal remind us that true strength lies in inner peace, not in retaliation. Envy destroys the one who harbors it more than its target. Seeking power through deception only leads to one's downfall. The best response to betrayal is wisdom, patience, and unwavering compassion. Devdatta, Buddha's own cousin, was envious of his wisdom and following. He conspired to kill Buddha in several ways. Releasing a drunk elephant to trample him, rolling a boulder from a mountain to crush him, turning people against him through false rumors. Each time, Buddha's immense compassion and wisdom turned danger into an opportunity for teaching. Envy destroys the one who harbors it more than its target. Calamity 7, Betrayal by Disciples. Even among his closest followers, Buddha was not spared from betrayal. Some disciples who had once revered him later turned against him, questioning his teachings and authority. These betrayals were not merely personal wounds, they were significant challenges that tested the strength of the monastic community and Buddha's unwavering commitment to his path of wisdom and compassion. After Devdatta's failed attempts to seize power, some monks who had been misled by his rhetoric continued to oppose Buddha's teachings. They accused Buddha of being too lenient and sought stricter practices, believing that extreme asceticism was the only true path to enlightenment. These monks broke away from the community, forming a rival sect that attempted to discredit the Buddha's teachings. However, over time, they realized the wisdom in Buddha's balanced approach and eventually returned, seeking forgiveness. One of Buddha's disciples, Sanakata, grew disillusioned because Buddha refused to perform miracles to prove his enlightenment. Sanakata had expected supernatural displays and became resentful when Buddha emphasized inner transformation rather than external wonders. In his frustration, he publicly denounced Buddha and abandoned the Sangha, monastic order, spreading falsehoods about the master. Despite this, Buddha did not respond with anger or retaliation. He simply stated that truth would reveal itself over time, and indeed, Sanakata's lies lost credibility as Buddha's teachings continued to spread. As Buddha approached the end of his life, a monk named Subhata displayed impatience and insensitivity. While the Buddha lay on his deathbed, Subhata dismissed the moment's gravity and instead inquired about how leadership would be structured after his passing. His concern was not for Buddha's wisdom or final words, but for power and control within the monastic order. Buddha, maintaining his composure even in his final moments, reaffirmed that the Dharma itself, not any single individual, should be the guiding force for the monastic community. Buddha's responses to betrayal reveal a profound truth. True wisdom does not lie in controlling others but in remaining steadfast in one's principles. Even when faced with slander, abandonment, and false accusations, he never sought revenge or responded with hatred. Instead, he continued to teach with patience, knowing that time would expose the truth. Betrayal is a universal human experience. Whether in friendships, workplaces, or families, we all encounter moments when those we trust let us down. The lesson from Buddha's experience is not to become consumed by resentment but to stay true to our values. Rather than seeking retribution, we can let time and integrity reveal the truth. True wisdom is not about changing others but about remaining steadfast in the face of opposition. Those who betray us will ultimately face the consequences of their actions, while we remain unshaken, holding on to our principles and peace. Some of Buddha's own disciples, despite benefiting from his teachings, turned against him. They spread slander, rejected his guidance, and sought out other teachers who promised easier paths. Instead of responding with resentment, Buddha continued to teach with patience. True wisdom is not about changing others but about remaining steadfast in the face of opposition. Calamity 8, the final meal and passing into nirvana. As the Buddha approached the final days of his earthly journey, he remained a figure of unwavering wisdom and tranquility. At the age of 80, after decades of teaching and guiding countless disciples, his body began to show signs of wear. Yet, his mind remained as clear as ever, and his compassion for humanity continued undiminished. One evening, Buddha and his disciples were invited to the home of a humble blacksmith named Kunda. Wanting to honor the great teacher, Kunda prepared a special meal, offering a dish that contained mushrooms or possibly pork. Scholars debate the exact nature of the meal. Unbeknownst to Kunda, the dish contained toxic elements that would weaken Buddha's already fragile body. After partaking in the meal, Buddha soon fell ill with severe stomach pain. However, rather than expressing distress or blaming his host, he remained calm and reassured Kunda that he had done no wrong. Kunda, do not feel remorse. The merit of offering food to the Tathagata is great. You should not think that this meal has caused my suffering. Buddha made sure his host understood that generosity and intention mattered far more than the unforeseen consequences of the act. Even in pain, he sought to comfort and uplift those around him. Despite his weakening condition, Buddha continued his journey with his disciples toward the city of Kushinagar. Along the way, he rested under the shade of a sala tree, sensing that his time was near. His followers, deeply saddened, gathered around him, seeking his final words of guidance. Ananda, his devoted attendant, was overcome with grief. He asked how the disciples should continue without their beloved teacher. In response, Buddha reassured them. Do not weep, Ananda. All compounded things are subject to decay. Strive diligently for your own liberation. Let the Dharma be your guide and refuge. As the sun set, the great teacher lay between two trees, entering his final meditation. His mind, free from attachments, transcended suffering as he prepared to enter nirvana. Surrounded by monks and followers, Buddha imparted his last words. All things are impermanent. Strive on with diligence. With those words, he passed into parinirvana, the ultimate liberation beyond the cycle of birth and death. His physical form was gone, but his teachings would live on, illuminating the path for generations to come. The passing of Buddha teaches us the greatest lesson of all, acceptance of impermanence. Unlike many who fear death, Buddha met his end with peace and clarity, showing us that suffering ceases when we let go of attachments. His final moments were not of despair, but of profound wisdom and serenity. In today's world, where fear of death and loss can consume us, Buddha's passing serves as a reminder that all things must come to an end. Rather than resisting the inevitable, we can embrace each moment fully, living with intention, wisdom, and compassion. The best way to honor life is to cultivate understanding and to seek enlightenment in our own journeys. Death is not an end but a transition. Accepting mortality with peace is the ultimate enlightenment. Instead of fearing the unknown, we can learn to live with purpose, kindness, and unwavering wisdom. Buddha's final meal, a dish of mushrooms unknowingly poisoned, weakened his body. However, he showed no distress. Instead, he reassured the cook that no one was to blame. He calmly prepared for his transition into nirvana, reminding his followers, "All things must pass. Be diligent in your practice. Death is not an end but a transition." Accepting mortality with peace is the ultimate enlightenment. Lessons from Buddha's trials. Buddha's life was not one of uninterrupted peace. He faced betrayal, slander, and attempts on his life. Yet, he never responded with anger or retaliation. Instead, he used every trial as an opportunity to demonstrate wisdom and compassion. Do not take insults personally. They belong to the giver. Compassion disarms hostility. Even enemies can be transformed. The truth will always prevail. Patience is key. Adversity is a test. It strengthens our spiritual practice. Death is inevitable, but fear is optional. In facing our own challenges, we can look to Buddha's example and remember that even in the darkest moments, we have a choice: react with anger or respond with wisdom.